Welcome back to We're Gonna Talk About It, and to a very special episode from our first episode from our health segment. We've been trying to have some of the most profound conversations this season, and we're having a really good conversation today because we'll be shedding light on a condition that affects thousands of children worldwide. We'll be talking about spina bifida. Just some small, something about spina bifida is it's a condition that normally occurs when the spinal cord and spine don't form properly in the womb, I think, at birth before a child is born. And but today, it's really not just about the condition. Today, we're going to talk about each and every single thing surrounding spina bifida. So we're going to talk about awareness, advocacy, resilience. And to help us get deeper into this conversation, we're being joined by an amazing and a very, very special guest. Joining us today, we have Pauline Luba, founder of CORE. She's going to tell you more about it. And she's more than just a survivor. She's a fighter. She's someone whose story definitely deserves to be heard. And we're so honored to have her on the show today. Yeah. Pauline, you're very welcome to the show. We're so lucky that you came to be here today.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Luba Pauline, and I am the founder of CORE Uganda. This is a community-based organization that seeks to aid victims of spina bifida, a condition I myself have faced. I am also a journalist and communication specialist, and I am also a writer.
Wow. That's a very nice, strong-looking CV. Yeah. Okay. Joel, you want to say something?
No, not really.
Yeah, to help us understand Pauline's journey, we have a few things that we'll be asking you today that can, I hope, each and every single person that is going to tune in to this specific episode. We have just a few things to ask, yeah? So, can you take us back to the beginning when you were diagnosed with spina bifida? And how do you recall your family navigating that specific moment?
Okay, so the time when I was diagnosed with spina bifida, I was 6 months old. So I was a baby. The way that spina bifida is, it's a birth defect that's common in babies. That's when it's mostly found. But then obviously there are cases when you're older, when you get older. So I think in the time when it was the most dangerous, it was my family that had to deal with it because I'm a baby, right? And then for me, it was dealing with the challenges that came with it afterwards for the rest of my life. So when I was 6 months old, I was diagnosed with spina bifida. And the way that they found it was that there was a sac that had developed on my back. So they took me to the hospital. My mom didn't know what was going on. And for a bit of context, my dad was the breadwinner of the family. My mom, the traditional setting, stays home, takes care of the children. So now my mom's last born at 6 months old has a sac that she's not understanding on her back. So they took me to the hospital. And when they took me there, they diagnosed me. They're like, this is spina bifida and we need to operate on this sac to remove it. And they had the surgery and the surgery was successful, but there came a problem from it, which resulted in a lifelong complication, which is muscle atrophy. So the doctors are not sure if it was caused by the spina bifida itself or it was caused during the surgery, because they could have affected one of the nerves. The spine connects to every nerve in the body. Yeah. So they were unsure if it was during the surgery or caused by the spina bifida itself. But it resulted in me developing a muscle atrophy. But it wasn't a very life-threatening issue. It has been difficult to deal with, but it wasn't a very life-threatening issue. So that's when I was diagnosed with it in the beginning.
Wow. I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for your family.
Yeah, it must have been really difficult. So before we talked, I'd actually never encountered spina bifida. Like no one had ever told me, oh, there is a disease or a condition called spina bifida. So I want to ask you, were there like any misconceptions you had to constantly correct about the disease? Was it attributed to like witchcraft because it's new? Someone might say something had happened and a cultural setting, a Ugandan family. How were there any misconceptions you had to correct about the condition?
For me, the funny thing is I chose to keep quiet. So a lot of people, the only thing people could see is muscle atrophy. Like, oh, what happened to your leg? That kind of vibe. But I've never been open about it. The time when I chose to be open about it was last year when a pivotal moment in my life, right? But I have never spoken about it. I didn't feel the need to speak about it because when you speak about it, people, they do think in that way. And I had stories about other people, children, older, what. There are so many misconceptions in our society because we are a society defined by culture. We're a society defined by tribal totems and things our parents tell us and we believe in. So for a lot of people, funny enough, especially in the north where I'm from, they do tend to attribute it to a sort of witchcraft because there are three types. There's spina bifida occulta, then there's meningocele, and then there's myelmeningocele. Occulta is a very simple, it's often found out by accident. Like, let's say you hurt yourself, you went and you took an x-ray, and then they're like, so there's a part of your spine. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. They're like, there's a part of your spine that's actually never finished developing because that's the whole thing about it. Your spine does not develop properly. So they discover, and there are some people who even die without ever knowing it. It may become something more serious when you get older, it may not, but most likely not,
That's occulta.
That's occulta. Meningocele, which is the one I had, is where I've forgotten like the science deeper into it of how that sac forms. But there's a reason why, because it does not develop, the sac forms, right? So now they have to operate to like remove that sac, close it up, and make sure that your spine tries to develop on its own, which I'm lucky enough happened to me. And most often you may have minor to major complications you deal with, like the surgery itself is intense. It's anything that has to do with your spine is intense.
Yeah.
So if you're lucky, no complications, but most people end up getting one complication or the other. And then there's myelmeningocele. It's the most severe kind of spina bifida. Some people never walk again. Some people suffer from intensely serious neurological body defects. Some people, their heads swell up, their bodies swell up, they never walk again, they can't comprehend. There's so many things that develop from that. So that's what comes with the spina bifida. So the one which is most commonly badly perceived, the the third one. It's so hard to say. We're going to go with the third one.
Yeah.
It's the one, because the defects are so easy for you to see, is the one where people start, this must have been witchcraft. Who cast you? Yeah. Or this one is just so unlucky. Or that's the kind of society we have. So for me, I was quiet and I didn't have to deal with it I didn't address anything. I didn't want to talk because what's the point in you knowing about me? Like, why? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so terrible. I'm actually really, really, really glad that you chose to come out and tell your story, because I feel there might be multiple people, that are being affected by this very thing, and they just don't know how to address it because society can be very unaccepting of people that don't appear to be normal like the rest of them. So I'm really glad you came out to address it. And I also wanted to ask, how has your experience, with spina bifida shaped your ambitions and your goals for the future?
I think the thing with spina bifida and how it has made me to be, there are so many situations in life I've had to go through where I came out different on the other side. Yeah. You know, when you're in primary, when it comes to kids, that age when people don't understand and then, you know, they're teasing you or they want to touch you to like understand like why is this like this? And I was not a talker, as I told you.
Yeah.
But thanks to this, it had to teach me that I have to develop boundaries, for one, and not allow people into my space, but to also understand where people are coming from, why they think this way. It's because people don't know. And unless I speak about it, I'm not the only person on earth. I'm not the only person in Uganda. There are at least 1,400 babies born every year with Spina Bifida.
Wow.
And as the article which was published in New Vision about my story is, I am part of the statistic. That's what it's titled. So maybe in my speaking now, someone else will understand and they won't be as harsh to the next kid or to the next adult. So it has helped me learn that I have boundaries, but there's also a need to speak out. And surprisingly, it also helped me build my confidence, because a lot of people, when they have issues, you know, if it's on their face or on their body or with something that has happened to them, there's a way you lose confidence.
Yeah.
But as I once had, you should not conform yourself to the bigotry of low standards.
Nice. Nice.
I had to choose whether I'm going to be this low self-esteemed person who is like, of all the 1,400, why did I have to be part of the statistic? Or to be the kind of person I want to be, a confident, spoken person. So that is how it has driven
And that's
me.
exactly who you are. You're a fighter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think that's an amazing story. From what you share, I feel like it took a very big toll on you, and not just you, your family. You must have faced some self-esteem issues or something in that line. So I want to ask. I'm actually asking. Were there any people in like your family, friends who played the biggest role in helping you overcome this challenge?
Yes.
Or this condition?
Yes. My family is such a blessing. We are all girls and I'm the last born. And aside from my parents who did not give up and are spending all this money on, because it's not cheap, all this money on like seeing that I'm at the best health and everything.
Yeah.
I do want to give my flowers to my eldest sister. Her name is Dr. Imelda Alikaya. And she has been such a great force in taking care of me. Not many people, because one of the things that I also battled was a number of health issues. I kept falling sick. Otherwise, I just had I didn't have appetite. I was just like throughout childhood. And even though she was not yet a doctor, or before she chose to venture into medicine, she was always taking care of me, always learning, how do I take care of you? And my mother as well. My mom is not a doctor, but she has, between, traditional things like take these herbs or going to a doctor, they have been so influential in my life. And now that, when we started CORE, Dr. Imelda is now part of, she's head of the medical team, everything that we do medically. And I think that's such a big blessing on my part. So my whole family in general, all of them, every single one of them, but I want to give my flowers to my sister and my mom especially.
Yeah. Oh, wow,
Wonderful.
Pauline. You took this thing that could have been the end of life for so many people, and you turned it into something absolutely phenomenal. Like seated here, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, that's a true testament of someone that's, going to do everything that they have to do to fight through life. And I think it's a very beautiful thing to look at. I hope that it can inspire someone out there that is, being challenged by any ailment. It doesn't have to be spina bifida. And in your article, you mentioned how spina bifida took a huge toll on you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Would you care to expand further on that?
There's always a wonder you have of of all people, why me? You want to, you're like, there are these, it has not been the biggest hindrance, but it has followed me, especially through the atrophy that I developed or like the scars that I had to bear from the operation, right? And you genuinely quiz yourself because you're like, this did not have to happen. Why did it have to happen? And the funny thing is that when it comes to the causes of spina bifida, there are different causes, but not fully justified.
Yeah.
Like it still needs research and medical research. One of the things they say is that it might be genetics. Maybe there's someone in your family that had it at one point, but no one in my family has ever had it. Or it could be that during pregnancy, because when it comes to spina bifida, it's not just on the part of the baby, it's also on the part of the mother. So it's a double thing. So what did your mom eat during her pregnancy? Did she take enough folic acid? That's why when you get pregnant, they tell you that make sure you take your folic acid to avoid getting conditions like this.
What foods have folic acid? You guys know.
If I remember, things like leaves, but I'm not fully sure. I've
Something
forgotten.
leafy?
Yeah. But
Okay.
there are actual tablets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which you can get at your pharmacy. They're not that expensive.
Okay.
But there are people like, we went around asking at a point, there are moms in villages who they're not going to take pills.
Yeah.
They're not going to take pills. And then when their children are born with spina bifida, they're just going to dump them. This is witchcraft, have been bewitched or something. Others take them to witch doctors and have them used for rituals. I read a story of a girl in Gulu who was saved from sacrifice because when she was born with spina bifida and her head basically got swollen as part of like a side effect. I believe it's called hydrocephalus, if I am fully sure that that's the name of that condition. And because of that, her parents can't afford to take care of her. She's constantly sick. And it's also, it's not reflecting good on the family. They were going to sacrifice her until she got rescued.
Wow.
Like these are the things that are happening in our society, right? And when I see them, you continuously ask yourself, like mentally, you're like, oh, why? But then I realized, because it's a bad and good mentally, sometimes that's how it would be. And it's a matter of perspective that, you could have had occulta where I would have never known, or I could have had myelin meningocele, which could have been more severe and I would have never walked.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? The perspective I had to choose was the good one, a good perspective that I have been blessed to experience life in this way by God. And perhaps in the way I experience it, I can help or inspire others, right? And the funny thing is, spiritually, this brought me closer to God. Like it took me away from God and then it brought me back to God.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I think everything else that falls under that, mentally, physically, and all the rest, I feel like in what I've explained so far is how it affected me and how it has made me be now.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. So you mentioned CORE, that you started CORE, a community-based organization meant to help other children that could be going through what you went through.
Also,
So-
is that CORE CORE?
Kore.
So now my question is, like, was there a specific moment in your life where that idea sparked off and you said, I need to do this? And what inspired you? What are the objectives of CORE? And what's your long-term vision?
Okay, so around the beginning of last year at my writing job, where I have had several stories of mine, published, several of them. And I was having a talk with my boss, and she's this very lovely American lady who has shown me the beauty of storytelling. And, she was asking about me and everything, and I was telling her about, certain factors. I don't even remember how spina bifida made its way in there. I think maybe at one point she had noticed my atrophied leg or something, but I think she was asking me deeper into that. And so I told her my story and she was like, this is very interesting. would you like to do a first person story on what happened to you? And then we can have it published. And I was like, oh, interesting. I've never done a first person story. I didn't even know those like people did that. I felt like it was like some what's the word for someone who's like full of themselves, kind of
self-centered.
Yeah, self-centered. Because why would you write a story on yourself, right? But she told me that sometimes.
What did Joel think? Self-centered.
No, I'm now reflecting on my life because all my stories are first person.
Like all the stories I've written on other people, right? You find joy in writing someone else's story and learning about them, right?
Yeah.
Why would I write about
like
myself?
The joy that we're finding. Yeah.
Exactly. And then what she said is something I think I really reflected on. She's like, sometimes the best person to tell a story or to tell your story is yourself, because people won't capture the emotion or the things that you put in. And she told me that I would not want to tell someone that, to assign someone to come and write the story on you. I want you to tell it as you. Now that was hard. That was very, very hard. She told me that I would, and remember, she's not my editor. She is the person at the top. Among the people at the top. So she told me, write it, send it to me directly, which was like not protocol. And I told her I would. It took me a solid 3 months to write that, 3 to 4 months to write that story. And I kept procrastinating. She kept asking me, Pauline, where's the story? Pauline, where's the story? Like we want the story. And I'm writing and then I'm like, but for what? Why do people think that they need to hear my story? It's mine. Like, why do I have to? It was such a conflict. It was such a battle. And she kept, if it wasn't for the motivation she gave me, and as well from my sisters, because my sisters are the most important people in my life. They really are. It's when they're the reason why I was able to decide that, okay, I finished this. Let me send this. But at that same time, I came into clarification about something I wanted. I have always wanted to start an organization that helps people with this thing. When I was younger, I would have wished for a community of people. Like, I used to hear that, oh, I've ever had someone who suffered from this, or, there's someone who is suffering from this, or I've had all these things. And I was like, one day I'm going to do something that wise, right? But it's going to be when I'm maybe older, you've settled down, you have money, you can do all these things. And then during that time when I was writing this story, and I was listening to a lecture as well about the shortness of life. If you know, there is this phrase, I'm forgetting it, but it talks, life is but a dream. And I've forgotten the poet that it's by, and I'm very into poetry, but it basically talks about how life is very fleeting. You wake up one moment and then the next it's gone. And the assurance of you making sure you reach an old age it's not assured. Old age is a privilege. It's a privilege. You're not. So there are people who are younger, or there are people who are older who have started things like this. Why are you waiting? And because of that, because life is but a dream, I realized that I don't want to wake up and realize that my life is gone and I've not done the things that I wanted to do relating to it. So as I submitted my article, I texted my sister and told her I want to do this. I want to start an organization that is going to aid victims in this regard. And that is when CORE was born. I got the word CORE. It was actually a misconception. I thought that the spine is like the core of the body. But then I was not? Apparently it's the brain.
Okay.
It's the brain. But the spine does have a core function in your body. If it wasn't for it, you'd be limp and what. So that's when I picked that word CORE, right? And then because
that's really cool. That's really cool.
And then because the word, there's core is used, the core of an apple. an Apple core. There are organizations with core. I decided to take on a K.
The core values.
Yeah, like I liked the word. So it's K, so core with a K.
Okay.
And that's when core was born. After the publishing of my article on both the Uganda Partners website and New Vision, titled I'm Part of the Statistic, that's when I decided to also announce the beginning of core. And at that time, it was a concept as we're still trying to form the team and everything. And the most beautiful thing is the people that have come,
Wow.
the people like, I'm interested. What's the concept of this? How do I participate in this? Can I offer my services in this? And most especially, I must give flowers because I am the founder, but there's a co-founder. And I believe you've had her as a guest before, Miss Danita Turiho.
Yeah.
And people who you talk to them about a vision and they're like, I believe in this vision.
Let's do it.
Exactly. That is Danita.
Yeah, wow.
So we are co-founders in this organization, and it started, what are we going to do? Where do we want to pick up? And thankfully, at the end of last year in December, CORE was officially registered with URSB.
Yay.
Yeah. So CORE is fully registered. And as we have gone into this year with like the plans we have had, we have 4 main missions: advocacy, aid, education, and innovation. There is no reason why in this modern day and age, at different ages, people do not know what Spina Bifida is.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
But you only get to know if it affects you or it affects someone you know.
Yeah.
So those are our main missions.
Wow. That's wow, Pauline. I wanted to ask, is this like a private initiation into the organization? Like, do Joel and I get a free pass? Are we like part of CORE now?
I'd say everyone is part of CORE mission-wise, but to get deeper, we have to talk.
Okay. Pauline, your story is incredibly inspiring, and thank you for opening up and sharing your journey with us. You see, conversations like this are so important because they help break the silence, they erase the stigma, and they build a more informed and compassionate society. And that's what we're after, especially here. We're going to talk about it. So before we wrap up, where can people reach you if they want to learn more or even support your advocacy?
Okay, so you can basically go, we have social media pages all over, and we're in the process of enhancing our website. So it's basically coreug.wixsite, but we're in the process of building a better website. And so if you want to join the CORE community, you can just search CORE community on Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter. We are there, and we hope that our message can continue to reach thousands, and we are able to do things not in the usual way that it is done, but that is CORE.
So, Pauline, it has been a pleasure to have you here. So could you conclude with a message for any child struggling with Spina Bifida? Like something, it could be a sentence, one word, like a child out there.
No, it's when you want to pick the most perfect sentence. But Spina Bifida is not the end. You have a community of thousands of people out there, and this difference in you is your uniqueness. And it can definitely lead and open more doors for you. It's not the end. It's the beginning to a better, unique version of you.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Pauline. Thank you very, very much once again. This has been very inspiring, I'm sure, to lots of people, to our lovely listeners, and to us ourselves.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Yeah, I learned so much. I learned the real pronunciation. Earlier I was on Spina Bifida, Spina Bifida. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here and raise more awareness for an illness that everyone assumes to be a curse, I think. It was so amazing that you came today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.